Welcome to Chalk Talk, a weekly preview of West Tennessee football featuring the JSUN sports team here on JacksonSun.com.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Week 3 edition of High School Football Chalk Talk here at JacksonSun.com. My name is Craig Thomas. This is the sports editor and high school beat writer Brandon Shields. We got several good games involving city high school teams this week, and we'll get started with an old school rivalry at the reservation. Southside is at Northside. We got one team that's been playing not so well, one team that has been playing well. What do you expect from that game?
Well, this rivalry is so old school. It's been 150 years in the making because they call this the Civil War. I expect a little bit of a chuckle out of that. All right, but yeah, one team hadn't been playing well, Southside. They finally got the first win this past week against Fayetteville, who hasn't won a game since at some point last decade. Northside, meanwhile, is 3-0 coming in with a young team, and they're 3-0 with a team that Coach Tab Val, their head coach, a couple of times has been almost unhappy with them after the game, just because of mistakes they've made throughout the game and stuff like that. So they can get so much better, but they're already 3-0. So it almost makes you, if I was an opposing team or another team in Class 4A, it almost makes you scared of how good they're going to be by the time the playoffs get here if they keep progressing the way the coaching staff is pushing them to. But Southside played them well last year. I covered that game last year, and it was a good game for about a half, and then Northside started pulling away there in the third quarter once they got some turnovers and stuff. But this is definitely a game that both sides want to win because there's probably a few cousin, friend, people going to church type relationships on both sides of the ball, both sidelines. So I won't say you can throw the records out for this one because usually the team that's having the better season wins this game. But, you know, don't be surprised if Southside gives them a good run for it.
That'll be a good public school rivalry. Another big-time private school rivalry, Jackson Christian and USJ, pretty much rivals in just about everything they do, I guess. That'll be at USJ. Again, one team that's struggling in Jackson Christian, one that's playing reasonably well in USJ. What do you expect to see here?
Well, what I hope to see, just as a football fan in Jackson, I hope to see Jackson Christian show some signs of life on offense. Because going into last week's game at Scotts Hill, they hadn't scored a single point yet. And then finally last week they scored a point, scored a touchdown, but it was on a defensive, like an interception return. So the offense still hadn't scored yet. So I want to see if they can kind of get that going, because that was kind of the strength of this team last year. And that was kind of what Coach Rowland felt good about going into the season. And he felt like we need to get the defense a little better, Well, I guess technically they need to get the defense better too, because their opponents are still scoring a lot. So, you know, this is going to be more of a game of can Jackson Christian match with USJ, you know, and compete with them. USJ's got some injuries that they're dealing with. You know, how do they respond to that? We'll find out Friday night.
Trinity Christian got a big win over Adamsville this past week. Really playing a South Gibson team that has lost its games, but continues to play well, reasonably well, competitively in all of those. Is this a little bit of a trap game for TCA going to Medina?
It could be. I think it's Scotts Hill they have next week. So, you know, with Scotts Hill being undefeated so far, I guess maybe they could be looking forward to that one. But there's a lot of kids at TCA who go to church with a lot of kids that play at South Gibson, so they probably want to win this one pretty bad. Coach Butler at TCA, Coach Stidham at South Gibson, they're two of the better ones around here at getting kids to play above their heads, as recent years have shown from both of those programs. You know, a lot of people tend to think that because TCA is as good as they are and South Gibson is 0-3, that TCA is just going to kind of run them off the field. I don't see that happening. I mean, I see TCA winning, but like we were talking about earlier down in the newsroom, it wouldn't shock me if I see a score from this one with TCA winning like 70-56 or something like that, because I saw South Gibson at Camden. They've got the athletes on offense to score some points on offense and special teams, and even in the secondary, if a receiver's not where he's supposed to be when Aiken throws it, which doesn't happen very often, but if it just happens a couple of times, that's 14 points that they could get right there. So don't expect a mercy rule running clock in this one.
God help our deadline if it's 70 to 56, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyway, Liberty, we talk about it seems like every week, that, you know, that tough schedule.
Happens?
I think it's pretty much.
I even think we even had this fake conversation about, did we have this conversation last week too? So.
Well, in any sense, big game against Memphis University School on the road. What do you expect Liberty to do down there?
I expect them to compete better than what a lot of people think. Not to sound like a broken record after that South Gibson TCA game, but last year MUS won this game 30-6, and Liberty didn't have Devin Bush running the ball because he was hurt a couple weeks before against Brentwood Academy. This year, Liberty's got everybody. Plus, they're riding a little bit of momentum still from that Henry County win. Plus, they got a big win within their own class last week against Haywood. This team is a good team. I mean, they've got everything going for them. And if MUS, they're not quite at the level of Brentwood Academy. So I could see them competing a little better. Maybe MUS still comes away with a win, but they're going to know they were in for a fight that night.
We mentioned the games at Northside and at USJ here in the city. Another one will be at Lane Field as Chester County visits Jackson Central Marion.
Yeah, this could be the game of the night, actually. The closest game in Jackson. Last year, JSUN won 13-12. I actually, in all honesty, I did hear some fans that came away from that game saying both teams kind of knocked offense back about 20 years for football. But just a lot of mistakes on both sides. But, you know, both teams, they both started out with a win. They both responded with they both started out with a loss and then responded with 2 straight wins. So they're both coming in 2-1. The winner of this game is going to be on a 3-game win streak. Chester County's probably had a little bit of a tougher schedule with Adamsville, South Gibson, and I forget who was in the middle there. Anyways, they've had a little bit of a tougher schedule, whereas JCM has played Ripley and Fayetteware. Now, the loss was to Dyersburg, and 50-8, they kind of exposed them for some of the mistakes they made there. So Chester County may have a little bit of an edge here as far as competition-wise goes. But JCM's got athletes, so I mean, this could be a high-scoring game, unlike last year's game.
All right, lots of interesting things to keep up with involving some of the city teams. You'll want to check out the Friday paper with the Blitz section as we preview all those city games, plus the games throughout the region. Definitely a good resource if you're going out to any of those games, just kind of the basics that you need to know. Social media will be active all throughout Friday with our Facebook, Jackson Sun Sports. Make sure to like that and get some of those updates. On Twitter, JS editor Brandon, a lot of the big game updates at half, and then throughout his game, and then at the end of the games as well. JS writer Michael, JS writer Craig, JS generalist Josh will all be active throughout the night. On the website, JacksonSun.com, we'll have those halftime scores for you. We'll have those full games, and then as the games and photos come in, we'll have the stories and galleries and video. Pretty cool game of the week video we've been having every week as well. So that's, if you haven't checked the website too much this year, you definitely want to do that at the end of the night because those videos are pretty cool. In
Thanks
addition
to Jordan Bowie for those.
Absolutely, and then in addition to the stories and videos and all that. So we appreciate you following along, and we look forward to seeing you out at the games this week.